Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Hicham Zahr, and I'm the head of Insights and Analytics at Eightfold. Marc?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Marc Starfield. I'm Group Head of HR Systems and Programs at Vodafone, and a new customer using Eightfold for the last 5 months.
So today we're going to be covering with you unlocking the potential in a future skills-based organization. So to kick it off, I'm going to give it to Marc.
If you go to the next slide. I quite like this quote from Reinventing Jobs, and it speaks to kind of this expectation that we need to think differently about skills and not in terms of just job descriptions in the past. The full quote speaks about must. And for me, that links to some of the future of work research I'm seeing. So one of those is suggesting that the future employee and people will want to own their own careers. It's called a protean career, is the coin phrase, but it's about people will manage, define, and evaluate their careers based on their subjective perspective. And fulfillment and psychological factors will be much more important than promotion and salary. And it speaks to that people have an expectation that they will work in a more diverse and globally dispersed environment that allows them to use their skills specifically. And then finally, your legal relationship to an organization will change. Or not your legal relationship won't change, but your legal relationship is less important. I think there'll be more opportunities to focus on specific outcomes that use your skills as opposed to just your traditional job catalog. And there's some interesting research. I mean, one is Capgemini suggests that 30% of employees believe their skills will be outdated in 2 years' time. Now, for me, that speaks to if we've got to really make sure people focus on skills, we understand them internally, but also allow employees and potential employees to understand the skills we require and how would you develop those skills that you might not have.
These are truly great points, Marc. I mean, may I please get a show of hands if your current job description does not match what you actually do? Ashu, right? So I'm one of those as well. So job descriptions, right? They're outdated, they're subjective, they're intimidating. You need to really read through the lines for you to uncover those skills that would make you successful in that role. And so now with the rise of talent intelligence platform, we've been witnessing that shift from job descriptions towards skills portfolio. And skills portfolio is everything that job description is not. So they're current, they're objective, they're simple, actionable. But again, what are skills portfolios? Think about it as the list of top skills or main skills that would make you successful in a certain role. And that's why that becomes important, because we can take that data, we can ingest that data into the talent intelligence platform, and we can link that very easily to the other modules that we have, talent acquisition, talent management. So let me just talk a little bit about some of the benefits of skills portfolio. So to companies, it would allow them to build a future-ready skills-based organization. And I'm going to go through that a little bit as to how that's accomplished. To the employees, it provides them with the transparency on the skills required to succeed in the role today as well as tomorrow, because that's being updated. So I, as an employee who holds a certain role, I can go there and I can check what skills do I need to have for me to remain successful in my current role. To talent management professionals, it can be easily linked to succession planning, training needs, and so on. Talent acquisition professionals, right? It can help drive build, buy, borrow decisions. To our partners, right? It's a key input to job architecture engagements, right? And so, because the focal point or the main point there are the skills. Last but not least, there are so many other benefits: skills-based compensation, you can incorporate your compliance and business requirements, and many more.
I mean, I'll just talk on our experience on the employee side. The fact that people understand where they are, their skills today, and how to get to the next one, and then linking that to personal and purposeful learning has resulted in us seeing a really big increase in people creating and spending the time on it. It speaks to your point about transparency, as people can see that. And then I think for talent acquisition professionals, I think there'll be internal crowdsourcing will replace much of the outsourcing. And that's going to be helping to understand what are the actual skills we need and where do we get that, either internally or from a gig-type economy. And I think it speaks to that future of work and how people want to respond.
Agreed. These are all great points. And especially now, as we're talking about more employee experience and employee engagement, that transparency is so much needed. So just moving on, what is it that we're talking about today? We're talking about a service offering by Eightfold that would help define roles at scale and help customers jumpstart their job intelligence engine usage. So we can help customers define or develop their skills portfolio. And we've developed a simple 4-step approach to develop that. First and foremost, this is where we need your input. We need the list of roles that we would like to build the skills portfolio for. We need the list of benchmark industries, as we call them. And I'll get to that in a little bit as to why that list is needed. The next point is we gotta enrich and extract those skills. This is what our talent intelligence platform would allow us to do. It'll allow us to infer those skills. The third point is validation as well as updating those skills. And I'll get to that, and I would love to hear more from Marc about how Vodafone goes about this. And last but not least is we ingest that data back into the talent intelligence platform, back into the job intelligence engine, and now you can use it with any other module. You can use it to perform the calibrations, and you can use it for any TM specific needs. So just starting with that first point, and this is very important because I get this question all the time. If I'm building a skills portfolio, shall I base that off a single industry, the industry that I'm in? No, right? You can truly tailor that to your needs. If you would like, you can say, and I'm taking an example here from banking, you can say for my client processing roles, so within the client processing job family, I want to look at basically banking as a benchmark industry. While if I'm looking at infrastructure engineering, I want to look at high tech as benchmark industry. So that would allow you to get the most current and most relevant skills within that domain. And then the next step is, this is where we come in. This is where the power of the talent intelligence platform comes into play, because we can then infer those skills and we can enrich with those skills that are specific for that role. Those are the top skills to be successful in that role. Now, of course, one thing, if we look at this one here, we can say, okay, but these top skills, maybe there are skills that are emerging, right? They're not part of the top skills. How do I ingest those? And I'll come to that in just a moment. But then comes the validation piece. This is the second step, which is very, very important. And this is where the customer can validate based on their domain knowledge, the internal context, business priorities. So we work collaboratively with customers and partners to develop this, right? We provide them with the first answer, but then they will need to do the validation, and they will need to input or enter those skills that are necessary for their own business requirements or even the regulatory requirements. So Marc, with this step, can you tell me a little bit more about what Vodafone does to validate those skills?
I mean, one of the things we do, we partnered with Eightfold the traditional one shows the Eightfold skills, and then we wanted to have a bit of a split for our internal employees, which is our core Vodafone skills, and compare that to what's coming from there. And that's important for us because there are skills we really want to drive and we validate, and we specifically want to push learning interventions and focus people on. But also that model, as you all know, once you've implemented, is probably outdated. So we really need this flowing in of information from the Eightfold environment. So we're trying to combine those two, which allows us to kind of have an ongoing understanding of skills, because skills behind certain jobs continuously changes. That gives us insight in terms of where are these skills available in different markets and how would we attract them. And then behind that, those two things together allow us to kind of create much better job profiles and requisitions, which we all know if that's really written well, you improve the quality of the candidates, but also our calibration improves. And that's a big focus for us, is saying how do we actually use the AI to make sure there is limited bias in the environment, and using those skills in that way, by combining your world but ours in a meaningful way.
These are all great points, because by offloading some of this work early on, the calibration becomes much easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're suggesting that our kind of recruiters will go from a 30-minute kind of creating something to a 5-minute. Besides the time saving of these talent acquisition professionals, it's also about we'd have a better quality gold standard, which is then something that continues to grow and continues to feed the environment in terms of candidates, but also employees understanding where am I and what learning could impart that skill.
These are all great points. And then one thing that we also do to help you future-proof that role and to help you truly build a future-ready organization is we provide you with the fastest rising skills within that job family. And so these are the skills that are emerging. These are the skills that might not appear as part of the top skills for that role. This is then, the key there is for you to take some of these skills and ingest those skills into the skills portfolio, because only then you can future-proof that role. And so with that said, what we do here is we do it for every job function. We do it by job function. And we allow you, right, to input that into the skills portfolio. We provide you with that data, but it's up to the customer, it's up to the partner to check and see, okay, this is what I need for the future. This is what I need based on my company's vision.
And why this is valuable for us is we have this vision of having a growth environment where everybody can thrive, and a growth and inclusive environment. But we want people to believe that there are opportunities that are tangent to the skills they understand and believe they have today, that allow them to see different careers. Because I think this notion of careers being this vertical thing is outdated. People will want different exposures, different opportunities, and this will allow us to kind of open our own minds to other skills, but also allow people to expect and understand that these skills are actually something I can move to.
These are certainly great points, because this will allow them to grow. And again, talking about employee experience, employee engagement, that's part of that's at the core of the employee experience. Because I, as an employee, I want to own my career trajectory. I want to own the skills that I would like to acquire. So this will allow me that transparency. This will provide me that transparency for me to acquire those skills.
We talk about democratizing opportunities, and this transparency is really important to allow people to really feel that is true, and to also understand where they could develop in different ways.
Great. And then the last step of the process is we take all that data, the updated data, the validated data, the data that in which you've ingested the fastest rising skills, and we input that, or we ingest that into the job intelligence engine, which is part of our talent intelligence platform. And that's when the data becomes alive. This is now where you have the skills portfolio for the roles that are key to your organization. Now, the best part of all this is the fact that we can do this at scale. So we can create skills portfolio for 1,000 roles in 3 months. And this is working with you. And this is something that we've proven working with some of our top customers. And we do this in parallel. As you can see, while we're working on enriching the skills and extracting the skills, you can be working on the validation. So we work on these in batches so that we don't expand the timeline. And this way we can be closer to add more value to the talent intelligence platform that you have. And then it becomes dynamic. And this is something that every time I'm talking to Kamal about skills portfolio, he keeps stressing on the point that it's dynamic, it's there, it's alive. So as part of the job intelligence engine, you have the globally observed roles where you can go and you can enter a certain role and you can see what's happening there with that role live, right? What is currently, how is that role being shaped from a skills standpoint? You can go there and you can then update that skills portfolio for that specific role.
And for us, I mean, it's really important, this dynamic construct, because otherwise it gets out of date very quickly. But we want to use this to kind of really inform what it is that will allow people to move to different skills. And this dynamic nature of it, and then we link it specifically to learning interventions. But behind that is, how do you enable the AI to continue to learn and improve and develop? So that the recommendations we're giving people on future careers or learning opportunities or exposure becomes even more accurate. And this is a foundational element, which if without it, the technology is amazing, but would not work without this really good insight from the skills and the jobs.
That is a great point. And also from a talent acquisition standpoint, you got to keep in mind that the role to position is one-to-many relationship. So then you can create multiple positions that inherit the skills from this role. And all you got to do is just tweak some of those skills to match the need for that role. Can you tell me a little bit more, Marc, how is Vodafone using skills portfolio in the talent acquisition space?
I mean, we went live at the end of January in terms of that, but we're trying to really focus on understand, and as opposed to trying to understand all the skills and all the jobs, we're being purposeful about a specific set. Saying, let's deeply understand the skills that are required to be successful at that. What are tangent skills that we could develop? And then using that to create real clarity and simplicity about, if you are interested in that role, how would you apply for that? And if you're not at that level right now, how do you get there? And that includes things like using the AI to introduce playlists of people that are specialists in this environment, or specific things that people like you are thinking of that career are finding helpful in that environment. So we're using it in that sense to try and focus and be really clear on what it is to be successful in that next role.
That is great. What about in talent management?
So talent management is really trying to, and we're exploring succession planning with you guys now, but it is starting to say, how do we understand who you are as an individual, but in an integrated way? So I talk about an integrated talent engagement platform. So where we take performance, your objectives, your learning, and all those things, and we bring it together in one single environment, which then gives us a much richer sense of who you are. And then our talent professionals can use that in terms of planning for succession and career, but also making it really easy for people to understand what alternatives are available within the organization.
Thank you so much, Marc. Honestly, this brings us to the end of our session, but this is where we want to open it up to any questions that you might have. So come on, please.
So, Marc, as you were looking at the whole strategy, how much time did it take you to get buy-in from the execs? Because a lot of it is not just centered around HR, it is about touching all the functions. And what was that process like, and what was compelling for them that allowed you to then run so fast?
I mean, we invested a lot of time. It took us about 6 months to get everybody aligned, as you know.
I agree.
It took us a long time to agree, but what made that successful is we spent the time running a few design thinking sessions and then understanding the personas for specific markets and people in different levels of their career, and then taking that and anchoring the benefits behind those personas. So our senior leaders could see that, our technology environment also, they would say, well, why are you doing this? We've already invested in this current technology, why do we need this? And we use those personas, and then we focus really on user stories, not functionality or technology. What is the outcome we're trying to achieve? And then we built a business case on the back of that, saying that if we achieve these things, we would be able to pay back this money, but also it's about that experience. You would have seen, we're looking, for example, to recruit or add 7,000 software engineers. Now, we won't recruit all of them, but also we want to develop people. So in terms of proving that we can have more internal mobility, more people applying for jobs internally, that was one of our measures. So, for example, we've seen 106% increase on people that are going to our career site and actually applying, which is really important for us because it's allowing us to demonstrate to these executives that we are getting more people apply. We have about 800,000 plus applicants a year. And then a stat we're really proud of, for example, is in these personas and benefits, we spoke about we'll be able to attract a more diverse population. And in the months we've been live, comparing to the previous period, we have 144% more females being appointed. And that speaks to the value of, for me, when you drop your CV, it changes the narrative from you need these 7 things, and often men will just apply and think I can grow into it. Females often do not. Now you drop it and it says I'm a strong match. And then when I click on it, I actually see things I could do differently. And for me, that's why we're seeing more people apply, but also we're seeing an increase in specifically female hires.
And again, just to put things in perspective, can you imagine a company today that's not undergoing a transformation of some sort, right? Be it digital transformation, business model transformation. Imagine working off of job descriptions. And this is something that I've done in my past life, right? In consulting. It wasn't, pleasant, but now there's a platform that would allow you to do that at scale. And now there's a platform that would allow you to enter those skills that are truly needed for that role. And so it's also helping drive or helping enable, right, those transformations.
And I think just some of the value is understanding where those skills are in different parts of the world. Because we're looking at our location strategy. In some markets, we're just not able to attract the skills we need. And having that intelligence of saying these skills are available, using the kind of eightfold wider environment to say where are these skills, that really informs and shapes some of our build, buy, and develop interventions.
That's a great point. Any other questions?
So I think 2 things, right? One is, in the future, do we need job descriptions? And the second one is, actually, when we were thinking about this whole offering, right? Our thinking was that can it really become a platform where this is powering every other action in the company, whether the compensation planning, whether the pay equity, whether the learning and development, career pathing, to even like what kind of areas to invest in, what kind of opportunities may exist for the organization. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one that really resonates, we're trying to, specifically in strategic workforce planning, move away from the traditional headcount job-based doing that. So now we want to bring in the skills from Eightfold into our strategic workforce planning environment, saying where we need these type of skills, this is where we can find them. And we're developing a kind of a dashboard for OE professionals and line managers to do that together. But it will take some time to change mindsets in terms of the traditional jobs, but really focusing on the skills and then being open to other ways of having that. That might be permanent employees, people on a secondment. It might be using an external person for a specific piece of work. So real focus on strategic workforce planning. And then trying to integrate all of this, to your point, right? So this integrated talent engagement platform where these things come together in a meaningful way. My one example would be learning. All of us have mountains of learning content. But we want to make sure that that becomes really personal and purposeful. And we, for example, seen a significant increase in people doing non-mandatory training, which for us is really positive. It means people are believing that we are valuing people and we want you to grow and develop, but also means that people are finding content that is actually more relevant to them. I mean, counterintuitively, in this time, we're thinking of spending less on learning content because we're going to be much more focused in that area. Those would be two examples.
No, that's very exciting.
We actually have a question from one of our virtual audience members. From a global perspective, how are you able to track applicants in European countries to show diversification of nationality?
So we're not live in one important part of Europe for us in Germany. We're kind of finalizing that with the Workers' Council. But it's something that we are trying to measure and track in early stages. But I'll give you a nice example with Ukraine. We could very quickly launch a specific site where we say we prioritize Ukrainian people from Ukraine applying for jobs in the different markets. We stood that up very quickly, and within a week we hired the first person from Ukraine into one of the markets. So we do understand that, but it's not necessarily driving our thought process around where we recruit. We're more interested in kind of where can we find the skills that we're after, and the location becomes less important. I think future of work, your location will be even less important.
I want to go to the question that was asked earlier about whether JDs are going to be needed in the future. It's a philosophical question, but I can just take a stab at it. I think there are some use cases for job descriptions, right? Like some candidates would love to see the minimum qualification requirements and so on. But as part of digitizing that, as part of having it as an integral part of a workflow, right? Talent acquisition, talent management. That's not the use case for JDs. So maybe it remains that JDs are more candidate-facing, but not necessarily what's being used to feed into the other intelligence engines.
No, I think that's right, but I think their use will be very different. I mean, I think the future job description will be more about why would you join this company? What is our purpose? What are we trying to achieve? Because people expect that much more from us now. And it'll be less about these 17 things you need to do, but more about why this is an exciting opportunity, what it means in our organization. Because people want to do meaningful work that is supporting specific outcomes, both for the organization, but also for wider society. And that's how I think job descriptions will change to kind of bring that to life. And then you'll use the skills bit to kind of say, what is it that I need to have as a competence, if I use that language, to be able to do this job?
Yeah, that will make you successful to do the job.
Yeah.
That's a great point.